What's up, Nashville? This is Beau Beach with the Free Speech Podcast presented by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. As always, we are going to bring you the top 10 stories of the week in Nashville commercial real estate, business, culture, sports, and even some politics. And of course, we should start off the show with a little politics because, as you know, Mr. Donald Trump shocked the world, won his third presidential election in a row. Yes, you heard that right. We're going to start off the show talking about how the 2020 presidential election was absolutely stolen, and it's very simple to figure out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the amount of votes that Democrats received from 2004 to 2024. And you tell me where the outlier is, right? 2004, John Kerry, 59 million votes. 2008, Barack Obama, 69.5 million votes. 2012, Barack Obama, 65.9 million votes. 2016, Clinton, the exact same amount, 65.9 million votes. So we're at 59, 69, 65, 65, right in the same range. All of a sudden, 2020, a candidate that hid in his basement, a candidate that had known mental health problems, 2 open skull brain surgeries, got 81.3 million votes, shattering the all-time record in U.S. election history, okay? From 65 million all the way up to 81 million votes in 2020. Which happened to be the only time that we were voting during a so-called pandemic, and the only time that the election rules were changed haphazardly all across the country, making it easier to cheat. Now we go back to 2024, same guy. You're running against the same guy, Donald Trump, who's supposedly a Nazi, supposedly a dictator. You know, these folks should be just as scared of Donald Trump in 2024 as they were in 2020. They should come out. They say there's record turnout to vote in 2024. How many votes did the Democrats get in 2024? Right back to where they were before 2020, 66 million votes. So you've got 5 different elections where the votes are all in the same little range. And then you've got this outlier election in 2020 where Biden gets 81 million votes. Somehow in 2024, 15 million Democrats disappeared. I think that's very unlikely when you're voting against who you believe to be Hitler and a dictator and someone that's going to round you up and put you in a camp, all the different hysterics that I've heard. So I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to look at these simple numbers and realize that 2020 was an outlier, an aberration, and a cheat. And people are going to say, well, where's the evidence? Well, the problem with that is the game was designed so that you could not prove cheating, right? They made it so easy to vote that there was no real mechanism for catching cheaters, which was the difference between then and now, right? Many of these states, to a certain extent, got their act together. Not perfectly, right? But much better than in 2020. So it was much more difficult to cheat this time around, which is why they reverted back to the mean of 66 million votes. So, without even taking into consideration all of the censorship that went into the 2020 election, whereby the government was working hand in hand with social media companies to censor conservative voices so they could control the narrative and continue to be the only source of propaganda. They didn't have that censorship control this time around because of X, also known as Twitter, right? So they couldn't control the narrative. They could push all the propaganda they wanted on television, but there are many fewer people actually watching television for their so-called news. If you're still watching television for news, I've got a secret for you. There is no news on television. There is only opinion and propaganda, right? And I don't know, maybe you're interested in opinion and propaganda. Maybe that's what moves the needle for you. But at least be honest that it's not real news, right? News is presenting information and letting you decide what you make of that information. Propaganda is you've been handed a talking point from the DNC and you were asked to repeat it over and over in an effort to build up this narrative across the country, which is exactly what happens in network news right now. You know, if you flip channels, it seems so convenient that all of these so-called news reporters are all saying the exact same things at the exact same time. You know, the same talking points are distributed and used across the mainstream, used to be mainstream news. It's certainly not mainstream now. The corporate news channels. You know, we have a real problem with the Democratic Party controlling the corporate news on television. But I think we are past that now. I think we've officially put a nail in the coffin of the corporate news. I don't think anyone who is a critical thinker is really turning on the TV to understand what's going on in the world. And I don't think anyone that is a critical thinker thinks 2020, with all of the nonsense that surrounded it, was a free and fair election. You know, I don't think there's any way that the Democrats are ever going to reproduce that vote count. They've reverted back to their mean of about 66 million. You know, this idea that they got 81 million votes is fantasy land. It is absolute fantasy land, whether you can prove it or not. All right, we're going to get into the real stories of the day. I'll be done riffing on politics. I just think that's so interesting, and I think we're having a kind of an awakening in this country where the average person is opening their mind to some of the things that they've heard over the last 4 or 8 years and thinking, wow, did we really steal the 2020 election? Look at these numbers. And you don't have to be real bright to figure it out. So I'm hopeful we're getting closer and closer to the truth. Let's start at the top of the show with the Nashville transit plan gets the votes. Faster buses running around the clock, more sidewalks, and synchronized traffic lights are on their way to Nashville. The ballot issue sped to victory by nearly a 2-to-1 margin, which surprises me. I thought it was wasteful spending, and willingly agreeing to pay more taxes is just something I wouldn't do. But nevertheless, perhaps that's why I live in Williamson County and not Davidson County. It's a milestone vote for the rapidly changing city, following a decade in which 2 prior transit expansions either failed by a wide margin at the polls or stalled in the face of withering opposition and never made it onto the ballot. Prior to the vote, Nashville had been one of just 4 of the nation's 50 largest metros without dedicated funding for transit. The plan raises the local sales tax by a 0.5 percentage point, lifting it to 9.75% on most purchases. The cost of the transit plan is $3.1 billion to fully build today and another $111 million to operate annually. All in, the expanded transit system could cost $6.9 billion over the next 15 years. Keep in mind, it's going to take 15 years to pull off the plan, right? Everything that they've, and I'm going to walk you through what they've included in the plan, but keep in mind, it's going to take 15 years to pull it off. So we're looking at a $6.9 billion all-in bill over 15 years. Bus rapid transit, or dedicated center lanes reserved for buses that would travel faster because they would not drive in regular traffic like they do today. 5 routes would receive that treatment: Murfreesboro Pike to the airport, Dickerson Road, Gallatin Pike, Nolensville Road, and West End Avenue. So you're getting 5 corridors with bus rapid transit. Okay, start adding these up. $6.9 billion. creating or upgrading almost 90 miles of sidewalks, right? That's cool. That really doesn't solve any of our issues with traffic. Close to 600 intersections with traffic signals, or 2/3 of the county-wide total, will be revamped with cameras and fiber optics so they can be remotely controlled from the city's new traffic management center, ideally streamlining the flow of traffic. So first of all, I think it's interesting that there are 600 intersections with traffic signals, and that's 2/3 of the county-wide total. I would have thought we had more than that. But really all we're doing is putting cameras and the ability to change the lights remotely from a faraway management center. Boy, in 2024 with AI and with all the other technology that we have, all the other sensors that are available, if we can make a car drive itself, I would sure think we could make a traffic light run itself more efficiently. The idea that we're just spending all this money so we still have some Joe Blow sitting somewhere in an office punching buttons just seems like an antiquated way to go about it. But what do I know? 24/7 bus service every day of the year for those folks that need to be riding the bus in all hours of the night. 12 transit centers, many of which would be poised to have commercial development as part of that construction. 10 new express or connector bus routes, creating more crosstown links and reducing the need to ride into downtown to then head toward your final destination. So that's what you get for $6.9 billion, which of course will not all be paid by that increase in taxes. That increase in taxes is only going to pay for a portion of that $6.9 billion. The remainder is going to have to come from other sources. So it's not fully funded by that sales tax increase, not even close. So, voters get what they get. They were offered that package. They took it. I don't think it's going to make any difference whatsoever on the flow of traffic in Nashville. But nevertheless, they pushed it through. $6.9 billion. Nashville, you are getting your dedicated transit funding. Congratulations. Number 2, furniture store called American Freight is closing. I know we do have one in Williamson County. Franchise group, parent of retailers including Vitamin Shop and Pet Supplies Plus, is following in the footsteps of other U.S. store operators this year by filing for bankruptcy protection and planning to shut down one of its struggling chains, American Freight. Discount furniture retailer American Freight will be winding down its business and starting store closing sales Tuesday. It has 357 locations across the country, with 344 company-owned stores and 13 franchise-operated locations. That's a lot of locations. And those are big stores. Those are big box stores. Quote, the debtors concluded that American Freight's limited amount of profitable store locations could not support the right sizing of its business through a plan of reorganization. Franchise Group's portfolio also includes Wagon Wash franchise with a total of about 240 locations, and Buddy's Home Furnishings, which has 34 company-operated stores and over 300 franchised locations. The restaurant chain TGI Fridays also filed for Chapter 11 on Saturday. We touched upon the TGI Fridays story in last week's show. I let you know that there was likelihood that they were going to file bankruptcy, which they absolutely did. U.S. retailers had announced 6,481 store closures for this year, already eclipsing the 5,553 closures it tracked for the whole of calendar 2023 and higher than any full year total since 2020. So there are an extreme amount of retail locations closing right now. And it's an interesting scenario because there is very little vacancy in the retail world. So the businesses that are growing and are looking for space are having a hard time finding it, finding the right location, finding the right mix, and it's real tight from a commercial real estate perspective. But then you've also got At the same time, more stores closing than at any time except for 2020. So, it's an interesting thing. The economy is kind of shaking out right now. A lot of stores held on as long as they possibly could, and they are just not able to weather the storm that we're going through now. So there are going to be more openings in the retail commercial real estate business. I think they're going to be backfilled pretty rapidly, which is good for everyone. Number 3, Chicago. The city of Chicago is the absolute worst. And let me tell you why. Oh, there's a lot of reasons, but we're going to talk about a reason related to real estate today. City Council passed a law in September applicable in a roughly 6 square mile area of the Windy City's northwest side, where owners have to give renters a chance to buy their homes before selling them to someone else. As if it wasn't hard enough to sell a property in Chicago with their ridiculous property taxes. Ridiculous. I used to do business in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for a short time. I met my wife in Chicago. I know a lot about Chicago. I took my business out of Chicago because the property taxes were so insane. I'll give you a quick story and then we'll get back to this. I was hired to list an industrial property for sale. It was not in the city of Chicago, but one of the very near suburbs. So still in Cook County. And we were looking at a price, and I can't remember exactly what we were looking at now, but we were looking at a price between 1 and 2 million, right? The property taxes on an industrial building worth between $1 and $2 million were $135,000 per year. $135,000 per year. So if you were going to make a estimated real estate tax payment every month, right? So you got to pay it to your bank, and then your bank pays it at the end of the year. The amount that you would pay for your real estate tax every month was actually going to be higher than the amount you would pay for your mortgage. Can you imagine? So your mortgage payment is less than your real estate tax payment on a monthly basis. That's how crazy it's gotten in Chicago and in Cook County, Illinois. Absolute madness. I said, you know what? I am done with this. No one wants to buy this property anyway. Why am I putting myself through this? So I very quickly exited my business in Illinois and have never looked back. All right, let's keep moving on this though. So sellers have to first give their renters a chance to buy the homes before they want to sell them. But this isn't just homes. This is 2 flats, 3 flats, 4 flats, which are very common in Chicago, single families, and apartment buildings. So if you've got a 20-unit apartment building, right, and you want to sell it, you have to give your tenants, your 20 tenants, the right to buy the apartment building before you can actually sell it. So if it weren't hard enough to do business in Chicago, in this area at least, it's become nearly impossible. This is anti-business, anti-common sense. The Chicago Association of Realtors called it disastrous. Yeah, you think so? The law requires an owner to give renters notice that they plan to sell a building 30 or 60 days before putting it on the market. Renters in 2 flats then have 15 days to form a tenant association. Are you kidding me? You think renters know how to form a tenant association and let owners know they want to buy the property? They have 30 days to do so if they live in 3 to 4 unit buildings or 90 days in a larger structure. The association has to pay a deposit of up to 5% of the contract sale price to move forward. Then the renters have 60 days to secure financing or 120 days in a building with 5 or more units. Do you really think that renters are going to be able to pull any of this off? The answer is no, but some will be delusional enough to try, thereby wasting time and resources of the seller. Quote, by delaying transactions indefinitely, homeowners in this region will lose equity and liquidity, and property taxes will remain sky high. Quote, This would be really punitive for a mom and pop owner. We're often selling properties where there's a time consideration, whether you have a loan maturing or there's a divorce or a death in the family or you're trying to retire. It could be really problematic if you can't control the timing. The law the council passed in September also substantially increases the fee charged to owners when they demolish buildings. So if you want to tear down an old building and replace it with a nicer one, it now costs an owner $60,000 fee to the city to tear down a duplex. So if you want to tear down an old duplex and replace it with something bigger and better, you got to write a check to the city for $60,000 for the right to do so. Quote, if the idea is to empower tenants to buy their homes, I think that's a wildly unlikely outcome for folks who don't know each other in a building to band together and get the funds together for earnest money, then march a deal through closing, unquote. Jessica Fuentes, a local alderman, said, do you want to know the number one concern that I get every day in my office? I can't afford to live here anymore. I just got my tax assessment and I'm done. I have to sell because I've been priced out. Right? So, let me translate this for you. The government in Illinois, Cook County, in the city of Chicago, they're all going bankrupt. They're all underfunded. So they're all trying to get their piece of the action, which is why real estate taxes in that area are outrageous, right? Real estate taxes are so high that people can't afford to live there anymore. So people are moving away. And they think the solution is to make it harder for property owners to sell their properties. They think the solution is to force property owners to give their tenants a open opportunity to buy the property, even though they have given no assurance or any type of background information that they are in any way qualified. The idea that you're going to take a multi-tenant building and those tenants are going to somehow form an association and then get that deal financed as an association and close that transaction is absolutely nuts. There's no way it's going to happen. All it's going to do is cause problems for the seller, make it even harder to be a property owner in Chicago. Such stupidity coming out of Illinois and Chicago. It is really mind-boggling. I refuse to go back. You know, my wife has family there. They're constantly trying to get us to go there. I absolutely refuse to go back. Not a place for me. There's nothing there I need to see. All right, let's keep moving. Nashville office space is expensive. Did you know? Nashville office rent continues to climb, especially among trophy and Class A buildings. Asking rent in trophy office buildings, defined as high-quality office spaces that are in high demand, reached nearly $60 per square foot this year, marking a 5% increase from the same time last year. $60 a square foot adds up fast. Let's see. I'm going to do a little calculation for you here. Let's say a small office space, small as they're going to get, it's probably 1,500 square feet, right? That's pretty small. If you're paying $60 a square foot for that 1,500 square foot office space, you're paying $90,000 per year. You're paying $7,500 every month for 1,500 square feet to sit in and do your work. That is big, big money. $60 a square foot is real money. Nashville now outpaces Atlanta, Charlotte, and Dallas-Fort Worth for direct asking rent. At the end of the third quarter, Nashville's average asking rent was $36 per square foot. So that's average spread across all the different buildings of different quality, right? It doesn't look like rent growth is going to slow down anytime soon. Nashville's rent is expected to continue to rise despite the unpredictability of post-pandemic office trends. Because of the growth that we've seen across our market, Class B space is where we might see a little bit of softening, but those landlords are following the trends and building those amenities for their tenants. With the upgraded space, I don't think that you're going to see much softening. Though leasing activity was sluggish compared to last year's third quarter report, demand remains high, with new-to-market tenants currently looking for more than 800,000 square feet of office space in Nashville. And that's where it is, right? New-to-market tenants. 800,000 square feet is a lot of demand, and that's really what's driving leasing, is new-to-market demand, right? So I've been in other marketplaces where there's very little new-to-market demand, and really what you're then is you're just poaching one tenant from other buildings. So there's just kind of a, you're poaching from him, he's poaching from you. You're all kind of in a race to the bottom. And I'll tell you that when I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was in the office leasing business, we would do deals downtown Milwaukee, a big city that's got the metro area has the same population as Nashville, right? But a city whose best years are behind it, a city that's on a downward trend, a city that has very few new-to-market tenants. So you're just poaching from each other. The leases that we would do in Milwaukee at that time were somewhere between like $12 and $18 per square foot. So that's what it looks like when you don't have new-to-market tenants and you just have to poach from each other. In Nashville, we're looking at $60 per square foot for Class A stuff, and on average about $36 per square foot, almost 3 times what's being paid in Milwaukee, a market that is on a downward trend with no new-to-market tenants. So really what's fueling the office space demand in Nashville is all these folks coming to town, new-to-market tenants, new to the city residents. Let's keep moving. Chipotle is one of the few restaurants still expanding. So if you've been listening for any period of time, very often in the show, we've been talking about restaurants that are struggling, that are shutting down, that are closing locations, that are going bankrupt. There are very few that are actually expanding and overperforming. Chipotle is one of them. Chipotle Mexican Grill is on track to break a company record by opening more than 300 eateries in 2024. A year that's proven to be a challenging one for the U.S. restaurant industry. What's more, the fast casual chain plans to open a similar number of stores next year. The Chipotle growth projections come as chains this year have undergone a barrage of operational shifts sparked by rising costs and slowing sales. Chipotle, however, reported a 13% jump in third quarter revenue, while its net income surged 24%. Same-store sales rose 6% from the year earlier. We have a really robust pipeline, and right now we have a lot of confidence in our development team to deliver great results in the years to come. Chipotle is planning to return to pre-pandemic annual location growth targets around 10% per year. So every year they want to add 10% more locations, which is a big undertaking, very difficult. All the Chipotles really are, for the most part, are build to suit. So there's a big process getting a building out of the ground in a timely manner. Very difficult to do. Nearly all of its restaurants in North America and Europe are company owned. Chipotle is seeing sales hold up with the limited need for discounting. So what's interesting is it's not a franchise model, right? Most of the big restaurant chains in this country are franchise models. Chipotle owns all their stores. They are not discounting, even though consumers are reporting that they've got less disposable income. And they are flipping the script here. They're going to continue to expand while everyone else contracts. So congratulations to Chipotle. There's an interesting thing going on with Chipotle too is, like teenagers are all in on Chipotle. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but if you go into a Chipotle at a normal eating time, it's full of teenagers. My daughters who just turned 13, they love Chipotle. All of a sudden we love Chipotle. We never went there before recently, but now we go there all the time. So something's going on where the younger folks are going all in on Chipotle. All right, let's keep it moving. I'm going to give you a real short update on mortgage rates. I know it's boring. It's only a few sentences here, so hear me out. The mortgage rate update. Mortgage rates have increased for the 5th week in a row. They're going up. If you remember, the Fed recently lowered the federal funds rate by 0.5 point. And since, mortgage rates have gone the opposite direction. They've gone up for the fifth week in a row as the market contends with growing jitters about the upcoming election and strong data about the economy. In the week that ended October 31st, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage rose to an average of 6.72%. That's up from the previous week's average of 6.54%, but still lower than the same time a year earlier when rates averaged 7.76%. So, we're about 1% below where we were a year ago, but what I think is more interesting is the Fed makes a big show of coming out and lowering the federal funds rate. And in response, the market has mortgage rates going up ever since. So that's really interesting to me. We're going to see how that plays out, but the whole idea of the Fed cutting federal funds rates was to get interest rates to go down. They wanted market interest rates to pull down, make everything more affordable. It's had the exact opposite effect, so we'll have to keep tracking that and try to figure that out. Let's keep moving. Nashville industrial rents are now the highest in the Southeast. Thanks to the market's massive growth, industrial rental rates in Nashville have not only reached a record high, but are now the highest among its peer cities within the Southeast. Nashville's average triple net asking lease rate for industrial space in the third quarter was $11.38 per square foot, a 6% increase year over year, and nearly 10% higher than the average asking rents in the next priciest southeastern markets. So $11.38 a square foot. Let's talk about what triple net is. This is one of those things that confuses people. So triple net lease triple net rent is the amount that actually goes to the landlord. If you're the tenant, you pay your landlord your triple net rent. If you're the tenant, you also pay your real estate taxes. The landlord isn't paying it, the tenant's paying it. If you're the tenant, you're also paying for the property insurance. The landlord isn't paying it, you're paying it. If you have any maintenance on the property, any type of lawn care, any type of snow removal, all of that is the tenant's expense. So a triple net lease means the landlord gets their rent and the tenant is responsible for all other costs, generally speaking. So while that sounds low, $11.38 per square foot, when you add it all up, all those costs to the tenant, the real estate taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the upkeep, the lawn care, all that stuff, it gets to be a much higher number. Soaring demand has driven up rents as logistics companies, retailers, and manufacturers have leased almost 10 million square feet over the last year. Historically, Nashville's industrial market has had robust demand due to its central location and proximity to consumers nationwide. More than 40 million consumers are located within a 325-mile radius of downtown Nashville, allowing truck drivers to reach distribution centers throughout the region within a day's drive. The robust demand has been no secret to developers who have added more than 26 million square feet of industrial space over the past 3 years. Another 6.1 million square feet is under construction. Rising construction costs and land scarcity continue to put pressure on the supply side. However, with a vacancy rate that is still below the national average, the Nashville market could be a target for developers to move forward on new projects. Yeah, so that's right. The biggest challenge is not demand for industrial space. The biggest challenge is the cost of construction and the cost and availability of land. Industrial properties are big and their foundations need to be flat, right? So you've got to find land that can support a big flat building. And because we don't have much flat land in Middle Tennessee and even fewer flat parcels that are zoned industrial, it does prove difficult to find land to build industrial properties on. And then when you do, you've still got to build them at a high cost. You've still got to finance them. But there is going to be demand there. If you can find your way through the deal, once that property is done and ready for occupancy, there will be interest either from a buyer or from an occupant. but it is a difficult thing to get industrial property out of the ground in Middle Tennessee. There's no doubt about it. I've got 3 more stories for you here. Each is pretty straightforward. Oracle sets lofty goals for its healthcare business, including curing cancer, not having another pandemic like COVID-19 again, and streamlining the electric health record. Quote, there's no system that keeps track of our medical records in a single place that anyone can find in an emergency. But I can immediately find all of your credit history and all of your credit limits, all the information about you. What does that say about our priorities as a civilization? Oracle announced the next generation of its electric health record system, which will embed artificial intelligence into the whole clinical workflow. The ultimate goal is for all of a patient's health records to be in one system so that no matter where they go for care, their health information will be available. It's also aimed at reducing the healthcare workforce's time spent filling out paperwork. You show up and you start filling in forms really every time. That's not how it should work. Your health should be at least as important as your shopping journey, and that's what we're working on. So what they're saying is every time you go to a doctor for whatever reason, all you do is first thing is just filling out forms, more forms, more forms, more forms, when really it all should be embedded into a shared electronic health record system that all medical providers have access to. That's the idea. I think that's smart. It sounds crazy curing cancer because we've been trying for a while. The time is really good for pursuing that with a reasonable chance of being successful. So Larry Ellison, the chairman of Oracle, one of the richest men on planet Earth, thinks it is a reasonable chance of being successful to cure cancer. So why is Oracle putting such a focus on healthcare? It was the only big problem Elon Musk left us with. Space is gone, electric vehicles were gone. So what is there? Oh yeah, medicine. It's really complicated, but it's really important. So that's another great thing that Nashville has going for it. Oracle trying to change the healthcare game and doing so right here in Music City. The Oracle deal continues to be a huge, huge deal for Greater Nashville. Next, Nashville Yards building flips from apartments to condos. You know, you're hearing more and more about this. And really what it comes down to is a lot of these apartment deals were having a hard time getting financed. It had proven easier to get them financed as condos. So a lot of these deals are flipping from apartments to condos. I don't know if that's exactly what's being done here because this is a pretty big and respected developer. I think they could probably got it done any way they wanted to get it done. But generally speaking, when you see apartment deals flip to condos, it's for financing reasons. Nashville Yards master developer Southwest Value Partners announced Thursday the residential units in its soon-to-open The Emery are now being offered as for-purchase condominiums. Southwest Value Partners is undertaking development of the site with both The Emery and the Everett being the apartment tower. Leasing of the 34th floor, the Everett apartment tower, began mid-October. The Everett is located at 960 Commerce Street. Construction at the 35th floor, the Emery condo building, will be completed by year's end, with the first move-in slated for early 2025. The residences are priced from the $500,000 to $2 million plus. Previously, the building's units were expected to be for rent. This address is 930 Commerce Street. The Emery offers one two-bedroom and 1 and 2 bedroom plus den condominiums. So 1 and 2 bedrooms. The units range in size from approximately 800 square feet to 1,800 square feet. Dang, so 1,800 square foot condo for $2 million plus? Maybe. The 312 residences offer 10-foot ceilings, 8-foot doors, abundant cabinet space, high-end kitchen appliances, dine-in islands, and mudroom-style entryways. The residences also feature spa-grade bathrooms, custom closets, Sonos-enabled sound systems, and smart thermostats. Quote, with both a for sale and a for rent option, the Emery and the Everett give anyone seeking the authentic Nashville Yards residential experience a choice. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I wonder how many people are out there willing to pay $2 million for an 1,800 square foot condo. About to find out. Lastly, one more retailer that is struggling that I need to update you on, and then we're done. Container Store is struggling to stay alive. The Container Store is hoping a $40 million bet from the owner of Bed Bath & Beyond will help it navigate mounting losses that are curtailing plans to open any new stores. We told you that story already a few weeks ago, how Beyond is giving a financial injection to the Container Store. Also, local Kirkland's in a similar arrangement. The Container Store ended the quarter with 103 U.S. locations. The company's abrupt departure from planning new store openings comes 2 years after the retailer told its investors it would add 76 small format stores through 2027 to help it reach $2 billion in annual sales. The Container Store has not reached $1 billion in annual sales since 2021, when it reached the milestone for the first time. So that's a pretty ambitious story to be telling investors. Hey, we've reached $1 billion in annual sales one time a few years ago, but we're going to reach $2 billion in annual sales in 2027. The Container Store is in retrenchment and in cash savings mode. The Container Store is in a very difficult position, with the company taking some quite significant losses year to date. The retailer is betting on a financial lifeline of $40 million from Beyond, the parent company of Bed Bath & Beyond, and selling co-branded products will help it turn around its troubled business. The retailer, based in the Dallas area, reported a loss of $16 million for its second quarter. For the first half of the year, the Container Store reported a net loss of nearly $31 million. So in 6 months, they lost $31 million, and they think $40 million cash injection is the solution to their problems. I beg to differ. The $40 million investment from Beyond is significant, but if the Container Store continues to rack up losses, the retailer will burn through that cash quickly, forcing it to consider other options, including bankruptcy. The Beyond deal isn't the solution. It buys time, but it doesn't buy them a solution. Faced with challenges due to softening demand and increased price sensitivity, which is affecting their financial performance. With fewer people buying new homes amid elevated mortgage rates, with the housing market being super gummed up, there's been a correlation into less demand for housing goods, including organizational products sold by the Container Store. Existing home sales in the U.S. fell to its lowest level since 2010. A retailer hyper-focused on selling home storage at a premium price isn't resonating with today's consumers. Boy, I don't know about that one, y'all. I know there's a Container Store at the Green Hills Mall. I know because I walk by it. I don't understand what's so exciting about containers to organize stuff, and I don't understand why anyone would want to pay a premium to do so. I think most people are not that kind of like type A perfectionist that want perfect organization. I think most people are barely holding it together and aren't really thinking through their organizational product needs. So I don't really understand who their target customer is. If the target customer is someone that just bought a house and they have some needs for organization, they think they're all going to go to Container Store and back up the truck and get everything they need. Maybe, I don't know. Doesn't make too much sense to me, but what do I know? All right, those are the 10 stories of the week, including my riff on why the 2020 election was so obviously stolen, whether it can be proven or not. I hope I didn't trigger you too much. As always, this episode was brought to you by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, a commercial real estate brokerage that represents sellers of commercial real estate in the Southeast. Check them out. Check us out at soldbybeechwood.com. Thanks so much, and talk to you next week.